Welcome to another episode of the Let's Talk TriDelta podcast. I'm so glad that you've joined us here today. I am Mindy Tucker, and I have the privilege of serving as TriDelta's CEO, the best job in the world. Each year, TriDelta gets to recognize a group of impressive and extraordinary women. They exemplify our values and are paving the way for the next generation. And today, I get to introduce you or reintroduce you to one of our 2026 Women of Achievement, Ashley Wilson McClellan, a TriDelta from my chapter at SMU. If you've been with us for a while, you may remember we had the chance to talk with Ashley on the podcast in season 13, which was a while back. She's been busy since then. She continues to lead, innovate, and inspire, which is part of what's making her a woman of achievement this year. And I think making it more meaningful. It's just fun to check in and see what she's always up to. So she is a healthcare executive turned entrepreneur. She has more than 20 years of experience in leadership, including serving as a 3-time CEO across various markets. She's known for building strategic relationships, developing strong teams, communicating with impact, leading through change, a big one right now that we're all going through, and delivering results grounded in mission and values. She is currently the founder of MedCurate, a digital and non-agency platform often described as the Uber for healthcare staffing. MedCurate empowers healthcare providers to take back control of their work environment through flexibility, choice, and innovative technology. She is shaping the workforce of the future. We're going to get to talk about that a little bit today. Today, we're going to hear also what lights Ashley up, how she defines success, and some of the lessons that she's learned along the way. And you will quickly learn why she was selected for this recognition and honor in TriDelta. Ashley, it is terrific to see you again and get to share you with our listeners again today. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me in this wonderful honor. I'm very flattered and excited to share this with our sisters.
That's good. I want to go back and start at the beginning. Some of our listeners may have heard this before, but I always love to start with the origin story, the TriDelta origin story as it is. How did you end up at SMU and what drew you to TriDelta?
Sure. So when I was doing my college search, which is really wild, by the way, because I just took my son yesterday to tour SMU. But when I was doing my search, my parents had a few parameters. They said I needed to go somewhere with a great business school because that's what I was interested in pursuing, somewhere they could drive to in a day, and somewhere I received a scholarship. And so I called it my Texas tour. I toured several sites in Texas, and by far, SMU checked all those boxes for me with the Cox School of Business. My parents could get there if they needed to, and I did receive an academic and a dance scholarship. So I was fortunate to go there. Knew nobody from Kansas City. That's where I'm from. When I went. And back then, recruitment wasn't until second semester. So I was going through the process at the beginning of second semester. And fortunately, because it happened second semester, I had all first semester to get to know the young women of all the different sororities on campus. And TriDelta was my number one preference when there and somewhere else on prep night. And really, it was the character and the quality of the young women that I met when I was going through that process. And I was thrilled on bid day when we both chose one another and got to run to the house there on University Boulevard and celebrate with my new sisters.
I was just talking about that run the other day with someone. I was talking about all the different bid day traditions and how you end up going to the house and finding your people. And
Yes.
Definitely did that run in the winter time.
Yeah.
Now they do it in the fall.
Yes.
Changes have happened at SMU since you and I were there.
Yes.
So I'm also feeling like I'm totally segueing here off of our planned discussion, but that's okay.
You're fine.
You said a dance scholarship, and I had forgotten that you had that in your background. There's another woman of achievement who's going to be at convention this summer from last year, Jackie Reeses, who's a baton twirler, and so was I. And so I'm having this moment of like, I feel like there's a performance coming.
Oh gosh, no. Don't worry, ladies, I won't put on my spandex again.
I'm somehow going to make this happen. I'll figure out how. But I love that there's this side of all of you that you wouldn't necessarily expect from a CEO. She is a CEO as well of a finance organization. And I just love that there's such depth to all of our women. So
yes.
I love it. So tell me a little bit more about how Tri Delta, what did you learn in Tri Delta that maybe prepared you for your career or your life today?
Yeah, I think all the fundamentals of leadership are touched on when you join Tri Delta, and if you become an officer as well, you receive additional training and tools. I think that one that stands out most to me is building. I call it building trusting relationships. For Tri Delta, I'd say building steadfast relationships with people that you didn't necessarily know you'd be pledging with or in the same sorority with, and figuring out how to connect with people where they're coming from and where they're at. And then nurturing that relationship, not just when you're in a collegiate, but also when you're an alumni. And so those building relationship skills have been very helpful and beneficial following my collegiate experience inside Tri Delta and then outside. I think communicating with impact is another key role. So being inside the sorority and having to present at chapter or having to present at an alumni event, becoming more confident with your speaking and presentation skills, and gaining buy-in for an initiative, whether that's what you want your theme to be for an event or how you're going to support your philanthropy. All of those skills are transferable to leadership roles. And I think that's what is really remarkable about being in Tri Delta and going through that process is everything I learned there, I've transferred to my future leadership roles as well.
It's so funny that you said that the way that you did. I was recently at the University of Arkansas, and they showed me their presentation to get bid day approved, and everybody knows what Arkansas bid day looks like. It's a thing. It's a whole thing. But I was watching the process that these women had to go through. They had to put a presentation together. They had to get it approved by Panhellenic. They had to get it approved by the chapter. And then they had to bring everybody along and do a budget. And people are seeing the outside, the sort of result of it, but they're not realizing what great experience it is for a young woman to have to lead a project like that. And how transferable, like you said, that is for the rest of the world.
Well, when I was a collegiate as well, when I was president, I helped plan one of the events with the alumni group. And so the individual that was over the alumni group at the time, her name is Barbara Fitzelberger-Wooten, and a community leader, a political leader in the Dallas Metroplex. And her and I formed a friendship. We're probably 50 years apart in age, maybe 45. And we formed a friendship from that she became an informal mentor for me through that and continued those learnings long outside my collegiate experience too.
I love that. That's a great Tri Delta story. I love that. I love it. So after SMU, you earned a few more degrees. Tell us a little bit about all of that.
Yeah, so I think, one of the great things about Tri Delta is meeting remarkable women. And I have always been a proponent of females in leadership. And while I know, Mindy, you and I have connected several times. And growing up, I had a female in my life that was a hospital administrator. And her name's Jody Abbott. Her husband, Mark, actually worked with my dad, Mark, in the transportation business. And so growing up, Jody was the only female that I knew that had kind of an executive level career versus having a job because they needed to work. And that stood out to me. So when I was an undergrad at SMU, I did some internships in business and finance, and those went well, but I realized that's not really the full scope of what I was hoping to do. And so Jody advised me on the process of, what it takes to be in hospital administration, and it requires a master's degree. And so I was trying to get my foot in the door when I was still an undergrad at a hospital so that I could start working there, make sure I liked it while I got my master's. And I got connected with Texas Scottish Rite Hospital for Children in Dallas, met with their team, and they said, hey, look, we'd love to have you, but we can't pay you. You don't have a degree and you're not clinical, so we'll have you volunteer. And for me at the time, when I went off to school, I was on scholarship and I was financially independent. So I needed to work. And so I let them know I'd be glad to volunteer. Let me figure out my work schedule. So I called them back and said, hey, actually, I'd let them know I'd love to be able to volunteer. Let me figure out my work schedule. I'll call you back. So they called me the next day and said, you know what? You said you speak Spanish. If you can pass our Spanish proficiency exam, then you could be an interpreter for us and we could pay you. And then you can work on projects and administration as well. And so I ended up doing that while I went and got my master's in healthcare administration, as well as my master's in business administration. So for me, I wanted both degrees. They're not both required. It's usually just one. But I wanted to make sure that I had kind of a well-rounded skill set for future as well. So I did that and then joined HCA Healthcare, where I had a great 18-year career before going back to get my doctorate. So that's a lot of education talk.
That's good. I love how you have sort of mapped out, like, this is how I got there, and this was the thinking at the time. And I knew I wanted to be here, and I felt like I needed X, Y, Z, and also the putting together how you get there. I think.
Well, I share it because I don't think that's what people would necessarily,
right.
Assume. Like, oh, you got your foot in the door by being, an interpreter. And so I enjoy sharing that story because I want people to know, just get your foot in the door and do a great job and opportunities will come to you.
There's some hustle involved in that. And I think that's one of the things I see it's missing sometimes today.
Yeah.
When I talk to people about sort of where they want to go and how they're going to get there, that hustle piece is really important. That's what you were doing. How do I get there? I'm going to hustle this and make this and fit that in. And so I think it's a great story to share. I love that you shared it.
Perfect.
So let's talk a little bit about that career that you mentioned in there at HCA. You accomplished a lot at a young age. Tell us a little bit about what that was like.
Sure. So again, I think I was very fortunate. I know I was very fortunate to even know that that was a career path. Most people, when they think hospitals, they think doctor or nurse. They don't even think leadership.
Right.
And so I think my kind of expedited career progression was because I had a great mentor with Jody telling me that it is an option. So when I finished up my residency in hospital administration there in Dallas, I was looking at opportunities that would really be a launch pad for continued career growth. Well, at the time, I found HCA Healthcare, and they have a Chief Operating Officer development program across their company. And they had, at the time, probably around 180 hospitals across the United States. And if you got into the program, they then told you a few days later where you're moving to. So you had to be geographically flexible, and it was a great opportunity. And so I went through that program. They actually sent me back to Kansas City to a hospital here, which worked out great personally because I got engaged and married. And then they asked me to then move back to Dallas to be a COO. So when you're in the program, you get progressive experiences and responsibilities, as well as there's a curriculum quarterly that you go through with your cohort at the corporate office in Nashville. And so did that for almost 2 years before they said, okay, you're ready for your own COO role. Let's have you go back to Dallas for this site. So I was there at Medical City, Louisville, just north of Dallas. And the CEO I reported to had a promotional opportunity that he took. And so his role, the CEO role, became open, and I raised my hand. And there were several fantastic candidates, but based on some of those relationships that have been built in the community and with physicians, I was fortunate to be considered and took that role. Subsequently, HCA asked me to move down to Houston to the Texas Medical Center, where I was CEO at the Women's Hospital of Texas, which delivers over 11,000 babies a year, 160-bed NICU. And I loved that role as CEO because I was advocating for everything maternal-child health in the state of Texas and then nationally for HCA. And then to continue growth within the company, they said, hey, we want to see you over multiple sites. And I had the opportunity to interview and come back to my hometown in Kansas City, where I was CEO at Research Medical Center, Research Psych Hospital, and Research College Nurse.
Just those little things, just those small things.
It was, the company afforded me great opportunities and leadership development that was, has truly shaped who I am today as well.
Yeah, well, I hear planning, like you stepped into opportunities that were in front of you with a trajectory, and you were flexible. You moved.
Mm-hmm.
a
Yeah.
bit.
So,
So
and one little nugget, I had a great boss in Dallas. And when I was in Dallas and they asked me to move to Houston, I knew nobody in Houston. Um, and my boss at the time said, actually, it's up to you. They're giving you a remarkable, opportunity to grow. But just know how you say yes or no is just as important as whether you say yes or no. With his point being, if you say yes, but you're dragging your feet, you might as well not say yes. So you have to be all in and grateful and eager. And that has stayed with me throughout my career now. And I think I just want to share that with other individuals that are weighing options on careers. Um, to know how you say yes or no is just as important.
that's a huge nugget.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like, okay, I want like 10 minutes to unpack and talk about that, which
Yeah.
we don't have, but that'll be our next podcast.
Perfect.
Um, but I love all of that. I think the dynamics of opportunities, I think when you're young, you think they just come, like you're in the right place and they come and you say yes or no or you move on. But there's so many dynamics around it. You had a family at that point in time,
Yeah.
or were at least married, right? So there's a lot
Yeah.
going on in your
Married
world pre-me.
and yeah, and kids. So that, in itself is a challenge, especially for female executives whose spouses or partners also may work, which mine does and has a great career, but figuring out how to balance that between both of us. Choose wisely, ladies.
Good advice. Also could be another podcast.
Yes.
Tell us, are there a couple of highlights from your career that you're most proud of, accomplishments that sort of still, stick with you today?
Yeah, I mean, I think the great thing about being in healthcare is that the work is so incredibly meaningful. I think for me, when it was a transition from COO to CEO within the same organization, really how I was able to elevate my leadership skills so that I could be seen in that broader leadership role. And that led to our hospital at the time achieving what's called magnet designation. So magnet designation is a nursing and quality designation for a hospital. And you have to outperform your peers on dozens and dozens of metrics and have lots of research to back it, et cetera. And so before I left Medical City Louisville, we achieved that designation for the first time. And we also were #1 in employee satisfaction in all of HCA, 180 plus hospitals.
Wow.
So for me, my goal is to, build teams and build leaders and build culture. And I think that spoke to our ability to do that as a leadership team. And the outcome was that magnet designation and engagement scores. I think on the flip side, also leading during times of chaos and change can really reveal your character. And being here in Kansas City at the hospital I was, we were the COVID hub hospital. We called ourselves the hero hospital, where we took all the highest acuity or sickest COVID patients because we had the clinical capability to help them more so than other sites. And navigating that with the leadership team and really ensuring that we were supporting our teams through the toughest, unprecedented, whatever you want to call it, time that any of us have ever experienced, and coming out of that strong as an organization with great culture.
One of the things you talk about is something I think that gets missed when people think about getting promoted in leadership positions. There is a high level of managing people and motivating teams in these roles that you've been in. And as you get more, I think as you sort of rise through the ranks, you see it more and more. It becomes more and more important. How do you prepare yourself for that piece of it?
Yeah, I think as you mentioned, I was able to grow into these leadership roles at an earlier time frame in my career and in my life. And so I was oftentimes the youngest leader in the room. And I'll never forget, it was Valentine's Day. It's a brand new COO. I was 24. And this new, highly complex surgeon wanted to meet at 5:30 on Valentine's Day. I said, of course. And so we sat down and he asked me, he goes, I want to know everything you can tell me about vascular surgery. Like trying to stop me.
Uh-huh.
And I said, you know what, Dr. So-and-so, you're the subject matter expert when it comes to vascular surgery. My job is to support those that take care of our patients, and I'm really good at that. So I need to know how I can best do that for you so that your patients have great outcomes. So my approach has always been understanding the needs of your people, and then taking care of them so that they can take care of, their teams and their patients. So that has seemed to work well for me because I'm not a subject matter expert in everything by any means.
Right.
I figured out how to find people that are and add them to my team. But I think that is key, is really understanding how to best support your team and be there and show up to support them.
Yeah, good advice. Okay, so you leave HCA in 2023 to invest in yourself and build this new business. Tell us a little bit about that departure, like that change in your life, and then MedCurate, this new thing that you're doing.
Yeah. So, again, I had a wonderful run with HCA, and every 3 to 4 years, there were progressive opportunities that involved the move. And so we were at a place as a family that we weren't looking to move again. And so I decided to leave HCA based on an idea that I had to start for MedCurate. So the number one issue in hospitals and in healthcare is staffing, because we're people taking care of people. And the gap of the number of people we need to the number of people that we have or that we're producing through nursing schools and other programs is getting wider. And so I thought to myself, there needs to be a better tool to connect the people and the clinicians that want to pick up extra shifts with organizations that need to fill them. And it wasn't going through a traditional staffing agency. So I created MedCurate. You can think of it as Uber, but for healthcare staffing, as you mentioned in your opening remarks. So it's a two-sided marketplace where hospitals, surgery centers, any sites of care can post their needs, and they choose what they're going to pay the clinicians and individuals, and then individuals that have the licensure, competency, and credentials that match that shift requirements can see them and pick them up directly. So we built out the technology. I do not have a tech background. I have a great tech team, though. We built out the technology the second half of 23 and launched with our first hospital in February of 24. And actually, just next week, we'll celebrate 2 years with them. We are now at 75 healthcare organizations across 10 states in the US in 2 years. So really meaningful work, getting to work with clinicians that say, hey, I want to continue taking care of patients. I just can't work so many nights, weekends, and holidays because I take care of my granddaughters. Or, hey, I work 3 12-hour shifts and I'd like to pick up a 4th shift a week because I'm saving for my wedding. And we're able to give people control to control their own schedule and make those choices, which has been great. And we've been able to take care of more patients in our communities.
I love it. I love disruption. I love creative ideas like this that sort of step in. They fill a need on both sides, really, of that equation. So, as you were making the move from corporate executive to entrepreneur, what are some of the things you had to learn quickly? What was surprising? How did you get yourself ready, or how did you sort of adapt to all these different moving parts and pieces that were required?
It was a very humbling process, to be honest, to go from a corporate executive with a team of thousands to a team of one. So you have to start somewhere. And I think for me, I like doing the work itself. And so I just would remind myself, I'm going to know what it takes to go through the process with MedCurate, start to finish, from every single angle. And I still joke sometimes because I'll have someone reach out to me about something they think is a minor, topic. I'm like, no, I can help you with that. They're like, oh no, give me someone on your team. I'm like, oh no, I'll do it right now. Let's go. And so I think for me, I realized I've learned more in the past 2 years than I probably had in a decade, because I've had to. I haven't had a subject matter expert in whatever topic to help me think through that. whether it's strategically pricing a new product line or how I want to design the user agreements. Or, the good news about being an entrepreneur is that you're in charge and you get to make those choices. The bad news is you're in charge and
Right.
you have to make those
You have to
choices.
make all those choices.
Yeah. So, it's been a personal journey. I realized, and something I'll share openly is, I realized for me, I thought my identity was I'm a hospital CEO. And so when I stepped away from that, it took me a while to process, well, what am I if I'm not that? And my TriDelta sisters were very helpful in that journey. They knew exactly who I was.
Yeah.
It reminded me of that. And I previewed MedCurate with them on one of our reunion trips together and had great support. So I learned a lot through the process about humility, how to bet on yourself and invest in yourself and be comfortable in
Yeah.
that, which can be challenging.
Yeah. Um, yeah, it's definitely a different mentality around self-promotion. I don't mean that in a negative way, but it just becomes a different approach you have to take to be successful. And it's a hard shift, I think, probably if you're not used to
It
it.
is.
And if it's not comfortable.
I used to be the closer. They bring me in at the end of a deal. And now I'm the first email, the first call, the middle call, the last call, the closing call.
All of
So
it.
yeah, I love it.
I love
Yeah.
it. So we alluded to this a little bit earlier. You have a family and a big career. And this is one of those conversations that feels so cliche with every busy woman I have it with. Like, how do you do it all? But I always get good advice from people. And I think we all approach it differently, which I think is maybe the lesson here for people who are listening and wondering on this. Your answer and my answer, we're both busy. We have kids, we're mom CEOs. How does that work? How do we make that work? It's different for each of us. But I love hearing what you say. I love hearing the answers to this question, and what advice you might have for others who are looking at it like, gosh, how do I do all of this? What are some tips and tricks that you've learned along the way?
Yeah, I had a really great boss and mentor for my first COO and CEO roles in Dallas. And he said he had like a whole list of life lessons, and I still have it and refer to it. But one of them was talking about, you can't feel guilty. Like, you can't feel guilty if you're at home because you feel like you should be at work. And you can't feel guilty when you're at work because you feel like you
Right.
should be at home. Because either way, you're going to lose. And so give yourself some grace in that. And, I don't call it work-life balance. I call it work-life integration. Figuring out how to make both work. And sometimes one's going to take more of that time and attention than the other. But figuring out the best way to integrate being successful with both. What are the non-negotiables on each side, and making sure that that aligns and that puzzle fits together, but then having some flexibility and grace with yourself to flow one way or another based on what's going on at the time. And, one of the benefits about being an entrepreneur is you get to choose how and when you do your work. And so
Yeah.
that means tonight I'm going to watch my son play basketball, and then I got a request for a contract about an hour ago, and when I get home tonight, I'll send that out. But I don't mind that because I get to do both things that
Right.
I love. And so it's not necessarily perfect, but my whole thesis for MedCurate was when you feel like you have a say of, what and where and when you work, you're going to have better satisfaction. And so I'm trying to model that in the way I'm approaching my work as well, which
Yeah.
has been really helpful.
I love that. So let's talk a little bit about this recognition. How does it feel to be named a Woman of Achievement for TriDelta?
And it's very humbling. I just think about my own pledge class and sisters, and I think many of them would be well deserving of this type of recognition. So I'm grateful for the recognition, and I'm hopeful that I can share my story and hopefully inspire other women, through sharing it as well. But TriDelta has always been a part of kind of the fabric of my life, and so I'm really grateful to celebrate with my sisters.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be an inspiration to a lot of people. Can you talk a little bit about that role TriDelta plays in your life? What does that look like today?
Yeah. So, ironically, I have two sons. So,
Right.
which is a total blessing. I always assumed I have, a potential legacy, but I don't. I find that outlet through my sisters and friends that have potential legacies. But I, in conversation with our family, really wanted to figure out a way to support females that are aspiring to be leaders. And my personal connection to Tridelt has been really meaningful to me, and my husband knows that. And so we actually created a scholarship for that focuses around leadership for collegiate women. And so my goal with that was, when I was in school, I worked multiple jobs to be able to make ends meet and be a part of the sorority and other elements of just being in college. And so thought process was, if we could develop this scholarship and endow it, then every year there'll be a young lady that will be able to maybe worry a little bit less about making ends meet, or being distracted with those extra jobs that they need to work, and be able to fully enjoy all the elements that Tri Delta and Sisterhood has to offer. And so that's kept me connected personally with the collegiates, which I really enjoy, and getting to know their stories. And then my alumni network within Tridelt, we're very close, as I'm sure you could tell countless stories on. But we're there for all of each other's weddings, then babies, godmothers. Now, unfortunately, funerals for some of the parents, some of their parents. And so it has definitely been a part of my journey. I share widely that Tridelta is one of the places where I feel like I can be my full, authentic self. I can be vulnerable. I can talk about my dreams of starting a company, or what's next, and feel fully supported of who I am and where I'm at that point in time. So I make it an intentional effort to stay connected. I don't know.
And I think you told me when we were talking last year that your pledge sisters were the first people there when it came to funding your new business and believing in your idea. And I love that. I love how beautiful that is, that they're there in friendship, but they also like stepped up in a way that is really meaningful, I think, because they believe in you and they know you and they know what you're capable of. And
yes,
sometimes I
and
think,
it's just amazing to think that translated from, however many years ago, when you're serving in a leadership role in the house, and they saw how you served in that, and therefore they're supporting you in a business endeavor 20 years later.
it also
That's,
reminds me of this. I feel like a thread I hear in every Tri Delta story, which is I didn't know if I could do this. And then my sister nominated me or believed in me or gave me the nudge. And I think so often we do that for each other because we do see each other's strengths and skills and
yes.
attributes. And so I love it when like dreams get affirmed by those around us. And I
Yeah.
think in Tri Delta, we do that pretty well.
Makes me laugh. Whether it's your sister telling you, yes, you're going to invite so and so to find your sister or mister because he likes you too, and giving you the confidence to do that, or hey, you're
Right.
going to start this business because you can do it. So, very wide range of
Yes, yes.
confidence boosting in this Tri Delta chapter here.
Love it. I love it. Well, we're going to lighten it up here for just a
Okay.
minute with some lighthearted, fun questions. What is a song that you play, or when you hear it instantly, it boosts your mood?
So Fireball by Pitbull.
I love it. I love it.
I'm a huge Pitbull fan. I, I think it's because of my Spanish.
Yeah,
I just love the hustle, have fun, be kind, just that mentality. It makes me laugh every single time I hear it.
I love it.
Yeah.
Fireball. Okay, now I'm going to think of you every time I hear that song.
Okay.
What is a small daily habit that makes a big difference in your life?
So for us, after we have dinner as a family, when we can, as much as we can, we do a walk. So we have a dog and we take a walk around the block. It's 20 minutes. But as your kids get older, you don't have as much of that car time because either they're
Yeah,
driving themselves or they're scootering or carpooling. And
yeah.
so for us, that's kind of our what went well today? Like what would you do differently tomorrow? And we just have those personal connections and conversation and enjoy fresh air together and no devices and just one-on-one time. So that's probably one that is my favorite. The other is my husband and I have date night every Thursday. So we had advice that, it's important to continue focusing on your relationship as you expand your families and careers. And so that has been sacred and really special for us, almost 20 years now.
Good. Both really good pieces of advice, I think. What's your recent best purchase under $25?
Trying to think about that. We just got a Swig in Kansas City, which is like one of those soda bars. And it's like an afternoon pick-me-up is to go through the Swig drive-through and get basically what's a cherry limeade. It's called a Riptide. It's like Sprite with raspberry puree.
Okay.
But it just really perks up my afternoon.
I love it. I love it.
So I know it's a minor thing, but it's the little things, right?
The little things in life sometimes. Yeah. All right. What's the most unexpected skill that you have picked up over the years?
Spanish. I always say 100%, coming from Kansas, and it wouldn't be anticipated. And it's one of my favorite skills.
I love it. I love it. And it should be. It's done a lot for you. All right. And what do you do when you're not working? What's your perfect Saturday?
My perfect Saturday is I'm usually spent in bleachers with my mom friends watching my boys play basketball.
Yeah.
And if we have better options or a trip, if there's a big tournament, I'm not missing a play. I don't know why. I love it. And those moms have become incredibly close friends, almost like sisters. Some of them are sisters. But there's nothing better than seeing your kid, develop skills in leadership and in life and enjoy that. And there's a little bit of competition too.
Yeah, I love that. As a baseball mom, I endorse that.
Yeah,
wholeheartedly.
Perfect.
So tell us what's next for you.
Yeah, I think early on in my career, I always wanted to know like the exact step. Like if I do this, then I'll get the next one school. If I do this, I'll get the next role. I realized that things aren't quite as linear when you're an entrepreneur. I think what's next for me is just continuing to progress in my leadership and in my company. So today, actually, we launched a new product line within MedCurate called MedCurate Enterprise. And that is a version of our technology that allows a health system to manage their own people to pick up extra shifts in their own instance of the technology. And if they don't fill it internally within a time frame, it then pushes to our MedCurate marketplace.
Yeah.
So as long as I'm continuing to grow and evolve and solve problems for people, that brings me great joy. I just want to continue to learn and evolve as a leader, and I feel like I'm able to do that.
Well, I think we have no doubt you're going to continue to do that. Who knows where you'll go after this. Thank you for joining us and being here and sharing your story. This has been a great balance of inspiration and great advice, and it's just fun to get to know you better and get to talk to you. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So if you would like more time with any of our Women of Achievement, you can join us this summer at TriDelta's convention. We're going to be celebrating and recognizing them there. And who doesn't want a weekend with your TriDelta sisters? Convention will be so fun. So please join us. You can get more information on our website at tridelta.org. We hope you'll like, subscribe, and rate our podcast. We love those 5-star ratings, even though there's only 3 stars in our crescent. Thanks for joining us today. And until next time, Delta Love.